Set in medieval England, the series introduces us to King Uther Pendragon, who receives the unexpected visit of his daughter Morgana in his kingdom. It turns out that he exiled her. The king banished Morgana 15 years ago to send her to a convent, as he suspected that Morgana had something to do with the death of his first wife. Now, Morgana demands a position in the reign. As his only daughter, although he disrespects his current wife, Queen Consort Igraine. After slapping her, Uther makes it clear that she is not his daughter. Therefore, Morgana uses magic. Seconds later, the wizard Merlin shows up at the scene in a hurry, though the king. He was already poisoned on his deathbed, and under the advice of Merlin, Uther signs a document to relinquish the throne to his unrecognized younger son. At the same time, Morgana returns. In its original form, it prepares to take over the kingdom of its deceased father. In the next scene, we meet Arthur, a carefree young villager who was having fun with a lover by the river, until her brother Kay, the legitimate boyfriend of the girl, appears. Despite having a small fight, Kay stops to inform her that he has a visit in the village. Upon arriving home, Arturo encounters Merlin, who reveals to him that he is the son of Uther and must claim the throne. Faced with that, the boy is alone. He laughs, as his parents and brother are present. How is it possible that they were never his real family when he grew up with them? Well, it's quite real, as his own father, Ector, confesses to him that Merlin brought him to their house when he was just 1 week old. Since then, they vowed to protect him until his time comes. On the other hand, Morgana adjusts to her new life in Uther's fortress, where she summons the rival king, Lot, to join forces and conquer the kingdom of Pendragon together. Lot was not completely convinced of his plan, since he had just met her, although Morgana proposes to him to lead as king and queen. For this, they must take care of the current queen, Igraine. Back in the village, Merlin gives Uther's ring to Arthur, in an attempt to gain his trust. In addition, he confesses that although he was the advisor to the late king, that man was a barbarian, and Arthur will be much better than him, as Merlin himself left clear instructions on how to raise him. Arthur. He also discusses his new destiny with his brother Kay, who seems much more interested in being a king and leading battles than him. Both of them were dealt lives they didn't want. After listening to his brother, Arturo tries on Uther's ring, but he still doesn't feel that it fits, so he ties it to a pendant to keep it close. Then, the moment arrives. Before saying goodbye to his family, whom he is very grateful to, he assures them that nothing will change the love he has for them. Before leaving, Arturo requests one last thing to her brother. Kay happily accepts, and under the guidance of Merlin, they set off for the kingdom of Pendragon. On the other hand, after making love to Lot, Morgana sees Queen Igraine leaving the kingdom just as he wanted. A messenger from Merlin informs her that she must attend to Uther's legitimate son in the ancient castle of Camelot. It takes him by surprise. On his journey to the kingdom, Arthur questions Merlin why he needs him so much, to which he responds that he had a vision of the future filled with blood and death. But their fears were already coming true, as they find a pit full of massacred corpses along the way. Without a king, there will be chaos throughout the kingdom. At nightfall, they pass through a village belonging to one of Merlin's allies to rest. There, Arthur shows interest in learning about his origin. According to Merlin, Uther was in love with a woman named Igraine, who belonged to a rival lord, the Duke of Cornwall. As his opponent's army was too powerful, Uther went to Merlin to transform your body into that of Cornwall and thus enjoy Igraine for a night. Arthur was the product of this deception, but as payment for his services, Merlin took him. Born to make him the best king those lands have ever had. The wizard has a whole project to transform the kingdom into a beacon of hope in these times. Dark times, and Arthur is a vital part of that plan. The next day, during the journey, Arthur is attacked by a mercenary from Lot, although he manages to overcome him in combat and kill him with his sword. That was only the first of many enemies, so they hurry to reach the majestic castle of Camelot. Or rather, the ruins, because the place it has been abandoned for too long, which disappoints Arturo quite a bit, but Merlin has everything planned. Beyond the current situation, the great Camelot's hall is imposing and filled with knights loyal to Uther, who now pass on their loyalty to Arthur. Merlin then reveals that he summoned the local lords to recognize Arthur as the new king, and no one had better refuse. Seeing so much respect for his father, Arturo asks what he was like in life, although Merlin only tells him that he was unbreakable. That is the quality he must learn from him, because from now on everyone will challenge him, especially his half-sister Morgana. Speaking of her, she finally shows up at Camelot Castle, where she soon points out Arthur as an impostor and assures that her father had no more children. Suddenly, Egerton appears to counter his argument, acknowledging Arthur as her son with a lot of emotion. Seeing that, Morgana and Lot leave in a rage, promising that this won't be the case. Later, Egerton tells Arthur that the same night she had relations with Uther, her forces destroyed Cornwall and his soldiers. As the law requires, the victor can keep the loser's wife. Egerton asks his forgiveness for never looking for him, as Uther himself forbade it, although Arturo still finds it difficult to assimilate that she is his mother. In his dreams, Arturo sees an attractive blonde woman on the beach, where they make passionate love, until Merlin wakes him up, asking him who she was. That woman. Minutes later, the forces of Morgana and Lot burst into the castle to intimidate Arthur, but he has already put on his father's ring and is ready to claim the throne. In response, Lot shows him the corpse of the mercenary he killed, revealing that it was his son. In revenge, Lot has his men bring Arturo's adoptive mother to execute it before his eyes. That done, Lot and Morgana give them 5 days to get longer before more blood flows. During the funeral of his adoptive mother, Arturo demands that Merlin and his soldiers are asked to leave him alone to mourn. Feeling guilty about his death, Arthur collapses on a beach to cry. Suddenly, he sees the woman of his dreams coming out of the water. However, instead of kissing him as she had planned, she threatens him with a knife and accuses him of being a stalker. In that tight situation, Arturo reveals to her that he didn't come to spy on her, but to bury something to his mother. The woman takes pity on him and decides to listen to him, confessing that many relatives faced Lot but perished in the attempt. Arturo wanted to continue talking to her, but then he hears his adoptive father calling him from the hill. Before saying goodbye, Arturo formally introduces himself to the mysterious woman, although she refuses to tell her name. Back at his mother's tomb, Arturo reunites with Hector and teams up with Merlin to seek revenge. That night, Morgana sneaks into the forest to summon a spirit maligno with whom he seems to have been talking for a long time, and promises him that he will kill Arturo. The next day, Morgana discovers that Lot is celebrating a party with the gifts from others lords, including courtesans. Faced with this spectacle of lust, Morgana acclaims that there is nothing to celebrate as long as Arthur remains on the throne. For its part, Merlin presents its next. Arthur was given the great task of becoming a king, to pull the sword from the stone. Well, it's not exactly a stone, as it is stuck in the edge of a waterfall and has been there for centuries. Seeing it as certain death, Arthur refuses at first, but legend has it that whoever pulls the sword out of the stone will be the king who unites the Britons. With the help of his brother and a soga, Arturo begins to ascend towards the Sword of Mars, which is what the locals call it, in honor of the Roman god of war. In this way, Arturo manages to climb an important part of it. Cascada, although now it must rely on its pure ability to reach the top. As it progresses, more people appear on solid ground to see it fall to its death or to see it triumph. In style. Fighting against the strong current of water, Arthur grabs hold of the sword and tries to pull it out. Seeing that it doesn't work, he remembers that Merlin suggested that he use intelligence earlier. Then force. Following this advice, Arthur presses the sword and manages to pull it out victoriously, although he ends up falling into the lake. Although he was somewhat injured, the young man survived the incident and he brought the sword with him, so Merlin gives the order to light a signal that will warn the entire kingdom that the new king has arrived. At this, Morgana is furious with Lot for having underestimating Arturo. With his wounded pride, Lot submits her against a wall, making it clear to her that no one can insult him in front of his soldiers, so he intends to abuse her. Despite that, Morgana maintains her composure and challenges him to show his supremacy in front of everyone. As punishment, Lot ties her to a lonely hill to abandon her for an entire night and teach her a lesson. Manners, if the wolves don't find it first. As night falls, the spirit from before appears before Morgana, warning her that he was wrong, but does not specify who. On the other hand, Igraine stays by the side of a badly wounded Arthur, begging him to allow her to be useful for his new reign and to compensate for her past mistakes. The next day, Lot releases Morgana. After she admits that he rules in their alliance. That done, Lot prepares to attack Camelot's castle that same day, ignoring the 5-day deadline. At the same time, Arturo 4. End wakes up, and what better way to start the day than with the legendary sword in the stone. In addition, his castle has been filled with villagers who witnessed his feat and have pledged their loyalty to him. What they didn't plan for was a visit from Morgana, who, against all odds, warns them of Lot's attack. Despite that, Merlin goes ahead with the coronation of the King of the Britons and the holder of the Sword of Mars, Arthur. Like his first words as king, Arthur promises the people a new system of egalitarian kingship. After that, he appoints Kay as the Marshal of England, and Hector and Leontes the man who led them out of the lake as paladins of the army. At the celebration, Arturo is reunited with the woman of the beach, who finally introduces himself as Guinevere. Immediately, Arturo takes her to a balcony to talk alone, although the protagonist, remembering his feat at the waterfall. He climbs to the edge to defy death. Inspired by his bravery, Guinevere jumps in with him and on the count of 3 they decide to jump. Backwards, of course. At that moment, Leontes interrupts to kindly inform Arturo that Ginebra is his fiancée. Being a king may give him authority, but it doesn't make him the owner of everything. Back at the party, Lot's mercenaries. They pretend to be villagers to attack by surprise. Then, the soldiers surround the king to protect him. Meanwhile, Hector gets angry as soon as he sees Lot, recognizing him as the killer. De sua esposa. Unfortunately, Lot easily defeats him, stabbing him with a spear. With the little strength he had left, Hector approaches Lot through the spear to stab him in the neck. On his deathbed, Hector says goodbye to his children, Arturo and Kai, who have to bury another loved one in less than a week. At the twilight of the battle, Morgana heads towards Arturo and company, acknowledging that her alliance with a man was a mistake, but she will find another way to claim the throne. Unable to understand her ambition, Arturo proposes working together as brothers, although for her the king is not everything. That night, Morgana undresses in front of the spirit of the forest, which materializes as a wolf. Anxious for power, Morgana asks for the following instructions to put an end to Arthur.